Hello and welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games, where I'm once again joined by my good friend, Raven. Raven, how does it feel to be introduced rather than introducing?
Strange, I'm not gonna lie, it feels weird. I nearly looked left then, it's just a natural response, but I was like, yeah.
Shift you out of your favorite chair.
Yeah, I'll get it back, don't worry.
Alright, that's scary.
Not in a mean way. I mean, I'm casting the next match with Sol, so I'll sit there.
Okay, alright.
Easy as that.
As long as it is just like that, there's nothing, dark to it. Anywho, did you catch any of the last game?
I did, yeah, it was good, yeah. I especially enjoyed the interview with Navi afterwards. That was definitely lovely.
Alright, subtle.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
Yeah, very, very close series, all coming down to the Quest Rogue mirror match. And, seeing Tar Creeper and just more and more techs over time with that deck. I'm really excited to see what happens next. Like, Tolvir Stone Shaper was a surprise when we first saw that in the deck. And I don't know, what 7 or 8 drop might find its way in.
Yeah, we might see some of these, some of these guys actually end up playing the Quest Rogue as well. I'm looking forward to this match since South Korea is my pick for the tournament as well.
All right, well, go ahead and tell us who South Korea is.
South Korea are a hugely dominant team, built up of a hugely dominant players in their own right. Krennic, Handsome Guy, Flurry, and Dione. All of these players have a huge wealth of experience. Krennic, multiple-time BlizzCon performer. Handsome Guy, approximately 1 billion HCT points last year for his region. Flurry was so close, I think, in the championships or last call to actually get to BlizzCon. Anyway, one spot actually ended up losing to Yulsik, which then lost him the spot at BlizzCon last year. And Downey, a huge streamer and a good friend of Handsome Guy and rival as well. So this team is just made up of superstars, to be completely honest.
Well, we've got kind of the opposite story to the last series that me and Soto just cast, where both teams had very, very low match scores. We had, one team was 1 win, 2 losses. The other team was 0 wins and 2 losses. Now we flip it over, where I believe it's South Korea is 2 wins and 1 loss. And Hungary is 2-0 so far.
Yeah, definitely. These two teams are at the top of their group, more or less. So they'll be sort of fighting to get, or at least secure that first place spot. And as we can see now, with Handsome Guy going up against Chaincaller first.
Once again, we are playing with the Hearthstone Global Games format. It's a best out of 5. In advance, the team decides what order they're going to be playing in and distributes the 9 classes between them. And then it's a blind pick, where Chaincaller and Handsome Guy will be deciding now whether Chaincaller wants to bring Mage or Priest, and Handsome Guy wants to bring Warrior or Warlock.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the Warlock pairing, and Soto has said, he's spent a lot of time thinking about what exactly you can do with Warlock, especially in this format. But I just can't get away from the fact that when you combine it with Warrior, your aim is to probably just play the Warrior, whether it be Pirate or Quest. We've seen sprinklings of them both, but both of them are still fairly powerful. And there we go, Handsome Guy picks the Warrior.
I was about to say, unless for a surprise attack you wanted to bring the Warlock and try and counter something, although Warlock doesn't look too strong against Mage or Priest, actually. So.
Not really at all, no. Even almost disregarding whatever archetype of Priest or Mage you look at here, I would probably be pretty confident if I was one of those versus the Warlock.
So knowing that you're likely to see the Warrior, you bring the Mage. Okay, sure. Secret Mage or Gunther Mage? What do you think? All freeze.
I don't know. These guys strike me as the type that I think they played the Discover Gunter Mage last week, and they did pretty well with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just brought it again. The problem here is if Handsome Guy's been in that awkward spot where they pick Mage because they're confident against Warlock or Warrior, if the Warrior is in fact the Quest Warrior, which makes that matchup becomes fairly straightforward. Right. There are a few things that if things go terribly, terribly wrong, you can lose just down to that 8 damage hero power if they get it off.
Right.
But a lot of the time, you need to actually throw the quest away to be able to survive the burn later on from the Mage.
Now, before you get too angry at us back home for putting the players in this horrible 4-on-1 scenario, it's not what it seems. If you're new to the Hearthstone Global Games, bear in mind that all players are hooked up via communications. They can talk to their teammates at all times. Sometimes they decide to hang out in person and actually play together, which is very cool. We can see them interacting with each other, high fives when they win, etc., etc. But on the other side of things, South Korea, they're all going to be linked up. They're all going to be talking to each other all the way through the series.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the first weeks where they're all, or at least so far, Handsome Guy is on his own physically, because he's been with Downey a lot of the time for the previous weeks and matches they've played as well. So I don't know if they're just busy, they're in different places due to whatever reason, or they've had a falling out maybe. They don't want to really sit in the same room.
Maybe it's just off camera.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, they will be in full communication, and because all these players like know each other so well in terms of the South Korean scene, then I think it's a huge advantage for them, it being a team format. They're actually, because all four of them, I said, are, very prolific, very well-known players in their own right. They've played against each other plenty of times. I mean, Handsome Guy's only lost last year, all 3 HCT seasons, was to Downey in the finals. Wow. So he won 2 of them and then came second in 1. So
yeah, there is a little bit of a rivalry there. As long as that doesn't get in the way of their cooperation, which clearly it hasn't. They're already 2-1 in the group. We're looking at players who are very much in the, I guess, upper echelon of this group. Both teams only need to win one more series to almost be guaranteed to qualify into the next stage.
Yeah, and I think there are 2 levels to this as well. There's the we need to qualify, right? You want to move on to the next stage, but also in terms of seeding, stage 2 is actually another group stage. So if you go in at top seed, the rest of your group will be naturally, weaker based on performance in stage 1 as well. So although we've talked a lot about these teams battling just to get through, teams are also going to be battling for that first seed, because that does change the makeup of the groups for their benefit.
There's a third layer as well, Raven, where any opportunity you've got to prove that you're the best, whether it's that you're the best country in your group, because then even if you do drop out in the next phase or don't win the finals, if you win your group, you can at least say, hey, we won Group B, we won Group F in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that Czech Republic and Ukraine, I think, or Czech Republic and Russia, I confuse myself now, that are going to be discussed quite a lot, because they've still got a match to go up against each other to potentially win their group.
Well, look at this. We're going to see our, I believe, first Pirate Warrior of the day. No, you and Sotul may have cast one earlier.
Yeah, we've cast Pirate Warrior. But yeah, it's going to be against the Discover Mage by the looks of things, although it's tough to say at the moment, because all these cards are just played in Mage at the moment. Even Burglary Bully's been played in the secret variants of Mage as well, so it's kind of a rough one to call at the moment.
Burglary Bully changes things slightly, doesn't it? Like, maybe the appearance of Burglary Bully, it could be a nod to an Antonidas.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the easiest combos to do, right? You drop down Bully. A lot of the time it does require a spell to remove it, and then, those coins are just easy procs for free fireballs, sorry. Handsome Guy here for Team Korea, though, on the Pirate Warrior. Awful first draw. This is a first draw of absolute nightmares for any Pirate Warrior players. Patches coming out early on is horrendous. And then you one-drop being the Zos first mate with a Fiery War Axe for 2 means that you're almost just playing a 1-mana 1/1 for turn 1, and then you pass in. It's kind of rough.
Yeah, it's not good. And Hungary know there's a Patches in hand. It feels even worse for South Korea having drawn it. It's the first draw after the mulligan, because it means there was literally nothing you could do about that Patches. Even if you had it and mulliganed it away, it can still come back in that first draw. And as me and Soto were saying earlier, it just removes, it's like, as well as giving you a poor card in your hand, it removes one card draw entirely, because you would have got the Patches for free, now you don't get it. So for the rest of the game, you're one card less deep into your deck.
Yeah. This Gluttonous Ooze in Hungary's hand has to be thought about in terms of timing. Unlike, some of the other Ooze cards, mainly just Swamp Ooze, is that you can't always just drop it straight away just kill a weapon, fine. Because this card can actually potentially get like a 10 damage swing if you kill an Arcanite Reaper or a similar built weapon to that later on. So a lot of the time you don't just want to slam it on just any old weapon. There even is some consideration to skip a Fiery War Axe.
Yeah.
If your early turns are good enough. We see Chaincall and Team Hungary just taking all the time in the world here. But with double Glyph in hand, the early turns might become good enough, or defensive enough at least, to be able to hold on to this Ooze a little bit longer.
Yeah, I feel as though you wait for at least maybe a Fiery War Axe plus upgrade.
Yeah.
Or an Arcanite Reaper, because when you do play the Gluttonous Ooze against the Pirate Warrior, it buys you so much time. Like you said, it's a 10 damage swing in some circumstances. Maybe more if the weapon's been upgraded or buffed up in some way.
See Handsome Guy there just squeeze out every single the point of damage from this terrible, terrible opening here, using patches on turn 2 just for a +1 damage and get a 1/1 on the board and continuing to chip away with the hook, not going straight into the War Axe here.
Arcane Explosion actually looking pretty viable. Is it? Do you think it's good enough? Just take that, get rid of the 1/1s now?
You are going to turn 3. Are you that afraid of a 2/2 weapon from Cultist? Is a question. Are you afraid of Captain, which then makes the board 2/2/2s, and the 3/3 Captain as well? I think 2/2/2s. I think the explosion is safe, but what you got to bear in mind is next turn one of these spells can be played along with Medivh's Valet to be able to just instantly proc the effect, because without Ice Block available, getting Valet off is actually quite difficult. A lot of the time you end up just playing it as a 2/3 minion against Pirate Warrior to just battle with the board, but Arcane Explosion here just gets the job done and just stops any turn 3 shenanigans, and there was a Captain off the top as well.
Yeah, so Hungary made the decision, and it looks like it was the right one. Getting rid of this Tati Captain and the 2/2s would, that's really fun to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right.
That would have been very, very difficult after this. But now they've still got their ooze. They've got a second glyph. And they're going to be able to start curving well soon with the Burgly Bully. Ice Block coming down, fitting the curve perfectly. It just looks like it's getting better and better for Chaincooler.
Yeah, Ice Block is really huge here. You just buy that one additional turn against the Pirate Warrior, which a lot of the time is needed. But let's bear in mind, let's just step back from this for a second. Turn 4 for the Pirate Warrior and Handsome Guy, and their opponent's only on 26 with a secret up, and you only have a Captain on the board. Captain is a great minion, and actually has a super high win rate when played anyway in Pirate Warrior, but is this really where you want to be? A lot of the time you're threatening lethal on turn 4 in most makeups, but this Arcane Explosion earlier on has really slowed everything down, along with Handsome Guy's terrible opening draw.
So now Handsome Guy trying to decide whether it's Corcoran Elite, just start smacking some damage into the face, or does he want to play the War Axe, buff up the Bloodsail Raider? It creates a much stronger board. He may be punished if he decides not to swing this in for some reason.
Yeah, I do like this play, though, over the Corcoran. The Corcoran is always 4 damage, right? No matter when you play it, look at the turns. You're not exactly going to Mortal Strike face next turn.
Right.
So Corcoran next turn is absolutely fine. And also, Handsome Guy probably got the read that, well, Hungary can't really deal with this Captain that easily, so now can they deal with Captain and Raider as a 6/4? Probably not. You know, there's just not that many difference in one mana that's really going to open up answers to both minions unless we see, you know, double Frostbolt. But the Captain just would have been Frostbolted the previous turn.
Handsome Guy not swinging the weapon. Looks like he's going to get punished immediately for that. Look at the look on his face. Coining out the Medivh's Valet on Chaincooler's side as well. Suddenly, Chaincooler has the board. Handsome Guy has a 5/3. That's it. And, yeah, a pretty sorry hand.
Yep, that's really rough, because you start to look at Hungary's hand now, and when you get to the point against Pirate Warrior, when you can just drop a minion that isn't like, you know, Desperation Taunt minion, a weapon removal or something like that, you can just drop Burgly Bully next turn, and Hungary and Chaincooler are going to be pretty okay with that, actually. They could just slam Burgly Bully. It probably 2-for-1s almost every single time. You might, you know, get a cheeky coin out of it, but even if not, you're then moving into Flame Strike, into Violence Portal, and if you do get that coin, you can chain the 7 drops as well.
Right. Hungary, who are already 2-0 in the Hearthstone Global Games, really showing that they can compete against the big boys. Even players like Handsome Guy, you know, they're gonna stand up to them. Chaincooler was at Winter Playoffs 2017. They do have their own achievements as well. Maybe they're not as impressive as what South Korea's got, but they're really showing in this competition that they are players to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. I met Exago as well. He was in Croatia for a tournament early this year. His performance was just very, very solid.
Right.
As well, and he's always super high on ladder anyway. So, you know, this team as a whole definitely knows what they're doing. And we see now the Burgly Bully gets dropped just to say, well, yeah, I'll take 4 more damage with a chance at an additional coin, or just a known fact that I can kill pretty much any minions that are played coming up. The only problem here is Handsome Guy does have Mortal Strike available, so that's damage just bursts straight from hand, and Hungary don't have Alexstrasza.
Right.
A lot of the time, Alexstrasza seals the deal in this matchup. You have control of the board, you remove all the huge threats from the Pirate Warrior, you Alexstrasza yourself on 9, and they cannot do 15 damage in the time you can kill them.
Might be a little early to say that this game is going to go to Hungary then, but on the other hand, Handsome Guy picks up his second Blood Cell Cultist. Yes, he's got the Mortal Strike in hand, but at most, later on, that's 6 damage. Where is he going to get the other 3 from? And realistically, it looks like it's not 6 damage, it's going to be 4 damage, so where's he going to get the other 5 from? He needs to pick up an Arcanite Reaper or something as soon as possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised here if we see the double Cultist, because frankly at this point you can't say he might have Flame Strike, I cannot play Cultist.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, well, I just won't play any minions, then I lose regardless. Yeah. But double Cultist actually trades into this board fully. As well, and being able to either trade into the board or if for some reason they'll be left alive, push damage, means that Handsome Guy can actually finish off this game quicker just by not having as much pressure on himself in terms of the minions that are already on the board. So I think Cultist just is the play here. Also, you don't want to just Mortal Strike for the fun of it to give your opponent a coin.
Of course not.
Because that can accelerate the turn. Maybe accelerate it to Alexstrasza.
That
like
being said, what if he was to now pick up Leroy Jenkins or something? Like, before, he wouldn't have been able to play it with the Mortal Strike or even Arcanite Reaper. Arcanite Reaper plus Mortal Strike is 8 mana. 9 mana, and on 8 mana next turn, South Korea just wouldn't have been able to make that play. So I think they're playing to their outs. They're going to try and pop that block as soon as they possibly can. Then they're going to get the bad news that there's a second ice block that they're going to need to pop. And in the meantime, Chaincaller is just whittling away Handsome Guy's health.
This is now going to be very interesting. Probably Firelands on the 3-4. What this is doing is just saying, I'm going hyper aggressive. I'll trade 5 damage from a spell to more damage from minions and the Burgly Bully as well. And now 1 damage off proccing the block. We can see that the second block's available and there's a third block in the deck for a start. But still, Handsome Guy getting so close, but it just doesn't like it's going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a possibility for South Korea that card could still be a Spellbender, I think. I don't believe that South Korea have targeted any minions with any spells yet.
No, they just went face for Mortal Strike, right?
And that spell came from a glyph. So South Korea may still think there's a chance that it's a bluff. And that they could just sneak a win by just killing Chaincaller.
Yeah, the importance of this ice block from the glyph was huge, though, because if you think, right, one, the ice block's been live for the 2 valets, which picked up very, very good kills.
Yeah.
On top of that, yes, they have an ice block in hand, now the second one.
Oh my goodness.
But it was 3 mana.
Yeah.
So they couldn't have played it in the same amount of turns, and they'll be a little bit further behind. So this ice block off Glyph, absolutely huge here for Hungary and Chaincaller. And we can see now that although that'll proc the block, it in fact won't, because there is now an ice barrier equipped and live. So.
Oh, it does, because...
Yeah, sorry, it wouldn't have with upgrade.
Right.
That's because Chaincaller put his opponent to 12. Which means Mortal Strike does 6, but
it was good.
It's not going to be enough.
It was good of Handsome Guy to at least play around the ice barrier, though. He could have made the mistake. Could have just played upgrade or tried to proc the block as low as possible. Either way, it wasn't good enough. Ice block, as you said, from Primordial Glyph. We can't really stress enough how strong that was. It's easy to say, oh, but there was a second ice block in the hand. We could have just played that later, but as you said, Medivh's Valet, it's one of the strongest things about Ice Block nowadays. It's why you see it in every Mage deck, even the more tempo-oriented ones, just because it makes Medivh Valet and the other secret cards so much stronger.
Yeah, also just the mana cost in general. It was 1 mana that he could put into that turn 3 in which he actually played the Glyph, which meant that next turn he could Valet, he could move on with other ways to progress the game, whereas otherwise you then having almost a whole turn just to ice block, and then you're always behind, more damage is taken, and maybe Handsome Guy procs the block a turn earlier, and then it just leads to disaster. But a strong win there for Hungary, taking down Korea at least 1-0 so far.
Very well played by both sides, but I think ultimately it's textbook volatile ooze.
Yeah.
It's what the card does. It beats Pirate Warrior, and it beats Pirate Warrior pretty hard. It did get relatively close, but it was just too late by that point. The ooze into the coin Medivh's Valet back on turn 4 was just such a strong tempo played by Chaincaller. And next up, it's going to be Penhadani versus Dione.
Yeah, it's going to be the Druid versus the Paladin again. You know, even you and Salt will talk about all the different variations of Paladin. And even what's interesting to me is how those mulligans actually differ, because we've seen Paladins that have been mulligan fairly, a bit safe, just saying, oh, I've got a couple of okay cards, I'll just do a safe mulligan, as opposed to, there's Dione with Flurry. In fact, I knew some of them were together.
Right.
But yeah, so there's been not hyper-aggressive mulligans, so matchups you would expect you would need it in, actually. We're going to see how this one pans out, and I think the nod will always be to the Druid, because the decks are so different. Is it Jade Druid? Is it Aggro Druid? Either way, I think it's going to be a relatively tough one for the Paladin here.
Yeah, there's some pretty weird things as well with Jade Druid and Aggro Druid recently as well, where I believe some Aggro Druids have started running Tar Creeper.
Oh, I've seen that.
I've seen that at Legend, but I remember being in the position against the Druid thinking, okay, Tar Creeper, it's a Jade Druid. And I played around it, and then Mark of the what? What is going on right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, Tar Creeper's attack can actually just be buffed, and they still always gain the +3 on the opponent's turn.
Yeah.
But also as well, it's just one of those, like, the card's just so good. Very similar to Firefly, where the card's just so good. We've seen it in Rogue, we've seen it in Aggro Druid now, as well as Jade Druid, that it will also just defend the Jade Druid board early on. So you just play that one minion, suddenly your early minions you've buffed are so much safer. But look at this match, it's going to be the Jade Druid versus the Paladin. I was
saying to Salsa earlier, just Tar Creeper, especially with Quest Rogue as well, like Firefly, it's just showing up everywhere nowadays. We can see by the Doomsayer in South Korea's hand that this is going to be a much slower Paladin than the ones that we've seen so far today. We've seen Primordial Drake a lot, but that even seems to be played in the faster Paladins nowadays. However, Doomsayer is not a card that goes into a fast Paladin deck.
Not at all, and this is actually, if anything, more of a hindrance, I feel, to Downey, because the slower your deck is against Jade Druid, normally the harder it is. There are a few swing turns that the Paladin can do, mainly revolving around equality with either Primordial Drake is absolutely huge because you clear the board then gain a 4/8, but they're still going to be consecrating the deck at least to be able to clear it up. So Downey's not going to be not going to have at least access to the early aggressive opening that you can try and beat the Druid down with, but still going to have some answers to some late game. But the main question is it always going to be enough? And Hungary are probably prepared for this, right? They are not going to spew all of their Jades onto the board, empty their hand and say, we hope he doesn't have equality.
Right.
That's not how you play. You put enough pressure on the board and then to threaten, and then if an equality comes out, you're like, okay, refill.
Yeah,
refill.
Auctioneer, Jade Idol,
exactly,
shuffle, let's go. And things are going to get very, very out of control for Penhadani soon. He's going to have Jade Blossom on turn 3 and then Nourish on turn 5 if he wants to go ahead and do that ramp up or draw some more cards. He's in a great position either way. South Korea are going to go ahead and pick up Repentance. That can be very, very strong against Tar Creeper, setting it down to 1 health and just completely negating the strength of the card, just making sure that it's not a good defensive tool.
Yeah, it's a real tough one as well when you want to get the Repentance out and what kind of value you even place on that secret.
Yeah.
Because against Primordial Drake, awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, it's very similar to like Mirror Entity, right? Against Jades. Well, the minion you play isn't really the threat. The threat's the Jade it creates. Like, so the same with Repentance, right?
You're going to Repentance a Jade Spirit when it's summoning a 10/10 Jade Golem, and that's no good.
Exactly. So, we'll see how much value that actually ends up getting going later on, but it could open up to just a nice sort of insta-kill with a token on the board, or, get caught in a Consecrate, for example. So there are, little ways you can make Repentance work here. It's Tar Creeper. It's going to be a pain, though. I wonder if just Doomsayer is ever a point here. What would it stop on for? It would stop at Jade Spirit.
Yeah, I don't mind Doomsayer too much. It's kind of strange that Penhadani didn't go into Jade Blossom last turn and start ramping up as quickly as possible. I guess he's playing around potentially a more aggressive Paladin and just trying to put a stop to that nice and early.
Yeah, at the moment, especially with the Hydrologist down, you're opening to, you're starting to worry about, okay, what if Rockpool comes down, plus a Valfin, and then plus Megasaur, then suddenly you're like, oh no, this is horrendous. Whereas if Rockpool comes down on this turn, well, the Tar kills it.
Yeah.
Like, if it trades into it anyway. It's going to be a Burn Bristle from Dione.
My eyes keep flicking from Tar Creeper down to Stampede and Kodo, and then I'm just thinking, how annoying.
Not how it works.
How annoying is that card? Because even if you outdoor Peacekeeper it still gets the attack buff back up to 3. The only way you can actually Kodo that thing is by silencing it, and that's never going to happen.
Yeah, it sounds not like the best idea I've ever heard. Whereas Hungary, I've got a few options of their own. They are starting to edge towards the turns where you have to worry about Blessing of Kings, Spike Ridge Steed, especially because the coin is available for Dione. But I think I just like Jade Blossom this turn. You could innovate into Nourish Jade Idol. You could Nourish for cards to just fill up and keep going. Nourish for mana to then go into the Gadget Zan Earthen Scale turn, the turn after. I don't mind it, but I wonder if you just feel like you've actually got the time here. I think Jade Blossoms is just casual. Next turn you can Nourish, and then you can go Gadget Zan, Innovate, Idle, Earthen, go crazy in 2 turns time, I think.
I really do like the Jade Blossom here. Jade Idol was fine too. Like
Sure.
you now understand that the Paladin isn't a very, very fast Paladin deck. The fastest ones don't run Wicker Flame, Burn Bristle. So you've got the time to play the Jade's Blossom, ramp up, and just kind of play it slow. But as you were just saying, second Doomsayer, this really is a heavy Paladin deck. Whether or not it will be able to keep up with the Jades in the late game, well, that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, I wonder if now next turn for Paladin is going to be the Gadget Zan, Innovate, Earthen Scales, but the problem with that is you float 1 mana and the odds on you drawing another 1 mana card when you've already used a Jade Idol and an Earthen Scales is quite low. So I suppose there's a chance to just Nourish a bit of a slow turn next turn.
Yeah.
Because I do believe going off with this Gadget Zan is going to be the key to winning this game, mainly just to refill your hand.
Most Jade Druids do run 2 Gadget Zan Auctioneers nowadays as well. Back pre-Ngoro, running 1 was the standard thing to do. Back then, you wouldn't ever waste an Auctioneer on a turn like that. You'd have to like clutch onto it until the late game. But Dione going to go ahead, play the Doomsayer, and it looks like that's going to go off.
Yeah, well, I think Panadani is actually going to just be relatively okay with it going off, especially with this Jade Idol draw. It means that he can just Nourish into draw. He could actually, depending on what he's thinking about, you could Jade Idol shuffle, then Nourish. So you've got a higher chance at drawing 1 mana spells, from i.e. the other Jade Idols, to then play with Innovate and their Gadgets and next turn. But I think with this board, he hasn't committed too much. The Tar Creeper's done a good job. If you just Nourish and say, okay, well, you're probably going to play 1 to 2 minions maximum. I've drawn 3 cards. Now have double Innovate along with Gadget Zan and 2 1-mana spells. Wow. If I was Panadani, I would be feeling very, very confident about this.
So that's at least 4 draws off of that Gadget Zan Auctioneer. Plus, well, I think he can probably fit the Feral Rage in that turn as well. And then whatever else he draws.
He can just do whatever he wants.
Pretty much, yeah. Mana is no object to him, and nor is card limitation. Like, he's got everything. Oh, he's got the means of drawing out a lot of his deck. What does South Korea do now, though, to prevent that, to preempt that?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? I actually think Hungary got away with a really good turn there because there is no strong follow-up. There is no Vinger, for example. You know, there's nothing actually. There's no even flurry of small Murlocs to build the board. There's like what? Kodo? Yeah, 3-5, go.
Right.
There's equip the weapon. Great, you've just handed the initiative almost over to Panadani. He could equip the weapon and play Repentance, which fills out the hand, the turn, sorry. But so what?
Yeah, it would reduce
the
Gadget Zan Auctioneer to 1 health, which is probably dying to True Silver Champion anyway.
Yeah. Also, you don't even need to play Gadgets on this turn because of how slow the turn is from South Korea.
Probably quite hard not to. I guess Jade Spirit plus Feral Rage is okay.
I think as well, because the secret could be anything, I think you just slam Gadget Zan. You just go. Because if you look at the way the hand looks, you could potentially get 2 to 3 more Jades out, and then suddenly next turn Jade Spirit is a great reload because your Jade's starting to hit 4, 5, 6. And you still have plenty of other cards. You've got plenty of removal to deal with anything. You're going to draw approximately, what, 4 cards this turn?
And don't forget, 1 Jade Idol's already been played, so given that we can see how slow South Korea's Paladin deck is, especially with the Doomsayer that's been played, Hungary definitely shuffle the first Jade Idol. The good thing about that as well is that with 2 Innovates being played this turn, there's a high chance of Penhadani picking up one of those Jade Idols.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's a nod to the sequence in there. Yeah. Almost always you Innovate first, unless you want to draw Jade Idol from an Idol you shuffle in that turn. It's just going to be Jade Blossom, which, although not amazing, definitely not horrendous, because this still buffs the mana. We're going to be on 9 mana next turn for Team Hungary. But also, it generates a Jade, which is just 1 more. And then, you know, the next few turns are going to help out with that even more. And for Earthen Scales on the Jade as well, just to cycle additional card. Armor. probably not a factor in this
No.
game.
Well, he wants to spread out his threats. The Gadgetzan Auctioneer has to be dealt with this turn anyway. There's one True Silver champion on the board. By doing it this way, Hungary know the True Silver's going into the Auctioneer unless there was another way of removing it. And now a 4-4 survives and deals some damage.
Yep. Also as well, this game is not going to be won or lost by Paladin getting like a 12 armor scales or something. You know, the game's probably going to be decided before then that the armor almost certainly won't make too much of a difference. Downey now has to think about how exactly to follow up here. Maybe just Doomsayer. Maybe just Doomsayer again.
Yeah.
I like it. If
Sure.
your opponent deals with the Doomsayer, they're going to have to use cards.
And it allows you to then curve into Rag Lightlord. It's much better setup than the previous Doomsayer was. Ideally, South Korea picks up a Tyrion and then can play that next turn onto an uncontested board. Although it's highly likely that Penhadani actually gets rid of this Doomsayer and keeps his 4-4 Jade Golem alive.
I think actually Wrath trade Aya probably sticks out to me as a strong play just to continue this Jade train.
Or swipe Aya. Depends how... Oh, you can't swipe.
Yeah, swipe Aya would require a coin.
One more
debate,
Aya.
yeah. But okay, Feral Rage kind of the same. And like I said, armor's probably less valuable here. And the swipe's more of a flexible card, which sounds weird because the Feral Rage is a
Feral Rage is super flexible, but it's a different type of flexible, isn't it? It's like, in this matchup, then it's attack. In a more aggressive Paladin matchup, it's armor. It's sort of flexible, but you decide which one it is as soon as the matchup starts.
Yeah. There's going to be coin into Ragnaros just to get something on the board at this point, I feel. I feel like Team Korea are just kind of clutching at straws to a certain extent. Because they're always... I feel like they're always going to be behind because of this strong opening.
Yeah, it's... they're already starting to lose the control, and the Jade Golems aren't even that big yet.
Ooh, Earthen Scales is actually pretty good. Just to build into the Jades even later on.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, Earthen Scales is used to just create good trades.
Right.
Outside of anything else. But Aya into the Rag plus a Rat does the job regardless. There could just be swipe, trade, and keep the Aya alive.
Gonna start by picking up another card.
Actually, yeah, I think actually swipe if you trade the 4-4. Keep Aya alive, play the Jade Spirit. That board says, okay, you kind of need to deal with this.
And even if he does deal with it, so what? A 6-6 gets summoned from
Exactly, yeah, and that's why it's important to keep the Aya on the board as Aya and not the Jade Golem. And a second Jade Spirit, double Wrath for draws, and a Primordial Drake. Hungary in such a good position. They can almost answer anything that South Korea put out here. Curator, card I talk about quite a lot in terms of just being the backbone of a lot of decks.
Yeah.
Going to draw an additional Primordial Drake if in the deck, along with maybe a second Kodo. But it's just, is it going to be enough versus this Jade Onslaught?
Unfortunately, the Curator is just a 4-6 at the moment, and that's actually pretty relevant. Its stats are important because it's not contesting with much that's on the board, and Diony's done a great job of reducing that pressure a little bit, maybe forcing the Aya to trade, but Hungary just don't care too much. They're going to just play a Jade Spirit. Then we're at, what, 7-7 Jade Golems, I think, after the one that comes from the Aya. Double Wrath could be used to cycle here. There should be another Gadgetzan Auctioneer in the deck somewhere. It seems to me like the Jade Druid just has this game locked down.
It's all the options in the world. Double Wrath can be used for the Aldor Peacekeeper, as well as the 1-5 to trade in, so you can get double draws. You can just Feral Rage, Hero Power, the Kodo, leave Aya alive, and now play Jade Idol, so... This is looking really, really strong. Jade Idol's just going to run away with this game, I think. And this is just all down to that crazy opening. Just the big Gadgetzan turn was huge.
It is important that Hungary kind of keep a note of how many Jade Idols are left in the deck, but chances are one of the players on the team's entire job is to keep track of things like that. Keep track what cards are remaining in the deck so that they know exactly what's there. But that could be a mistake that Hungary might end up making. It's unlikely, but it's something that could cost them the game.
It's one of the things that'll catch you out 1 in 100 games, maybe. You know, with players this level, there'll just be a game where you just slip. But the odds on that happening, like you said, with 4 people looking at it, like already there's 2, right? There's 2 in the deck. You just know that straight away. And also, you very quickly hit a number that the number doesn't matter anymore. If you end up just doing the Fandral Jade Spirit, Jade Idol, and then Jade Idol shuffle another one. Suddenly with like 10 cards in deck that are all Jades, it no longer matters. You will win the game before fatigue becomes even a thought.
All right, lay on hands. South Korea going for a restock, but not actually doing anything else, not putting anything else on the board, not dealing any damage. Dione is accepting that he's about to take 10, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Sometimes you just got to take a rough turn, draw 3 cards. Those 3 cards could make an impact going forward, but again, Paladin just has all the options in the world. Drawing the second Jade Idol, now a Jade Behemoth.
Oh my goodness.
Have you ever seen so much green, Falk?
Yeah, we're gonna be at 10-10 soon enough. One of the most frustrating things I think for Dione is that Aya is still alive. So even if he does pick up an equality to play with the Drake, to play with the Consecration, it doesn't matter because there's still going to be a Jade Golem. It is so important for South Korea that Aya is dealt with sooner rather than later.
Oh, there's an equality.
Because that would be the full board clear now if there wasn't an Aya.
This... Hang on. Ah, this is so wonky.
Wonky?
Wonky.
Okay.
Because the Drake plus the equality looks great, but as you said, it generates a huge Jade, right?
Right.
So, do you Drake to kill the Aya, then equality conk the turn after?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I was wondering.
But the problem is on 17, you could just die.
Yeah.
So, if the Drake is just cut through pretty easily with like one big Jade, then you could actually just die pretty easily. This Jade, along with a hero power / scaled, can actually just hit through the Drake regardless. This is nice though. Aldor Peacekeeper onto the one Jade that's left.
This almost cleared the board. Kodo could finish up the job next turn until Paladin plays 3 Jade Golems this
one
turn.
of the many Jade cards in hand.
He's not going to. I mean, he might even not play anymore. He might just play 1 Jade Idol this turn. It doesn't really matter. As long as he plays around like a second equality, then he's got nothing to worry about. I guess Sunkeeper Tarim is also something to think about.
Yeah, Sunkeeper Tarim is one of the cards that can also help battle back, but for that to really happen, you kind of need the board yourself to be able to just instantly trade into all those Jades.
Yeah, instead of setting up lethal, which is what Hungary could have done by playing another Jade Idol, he decided to play it slow. He realizes he wins the long game every time, no matter what. So as long as I play it slow, keep control of the board, and worst case scenario, you can even save the Jade Idols for the second Gadgetzan Auctioneer, and then when you get that, just go and play everything.
Yeah, also this kind of does just set up lethal as well with the Scales and the Feral Rage.
Oh, yeah,
to go aggressive, as long as, the 8/8 isn't cleared, then you're feeling pretty confident you can push the damage. It's going to be 6 + 8, so 1 off. So if the 1/7 survives as well, you're completely fine. So this does set up lethal in a very conservative way. It means that there's no real blowout opportunities here.
Dione gonna draw the Hydrologist. I wonder if he was even looking for Get Down there, Noble Sacrifice, but...
Potentially, but the hero power is always...
Even that would have been, he saved 1, yeah.
Redemption's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
More susceptible to, like, swipe, but you've already seen 1 swipe, so... It's going to be the Repentance.
Okay.
Oh, Fandral, Idol, lol.
As we mentioned earlier, Repentance not so great against Jade Druids. It's not going to be reducing the health of one of those Jade Idols.
Yep.
Maybe it might hit Jade Behemoth. Maybe just a 3/6 to a 3/1.
Looks like it's going to use the Feral Rage to actually trade into the Curator. Does get the armor as well. With the help of the Fandral, so this is just getting as much value as possible. Fandral getting 1 health, well, you know what? It's cycling 2 sets of Jade Idols and buffing the Feral Rage to both choose effects. It can die next turn, that's fine.
Yeah, I wonder if Hungary even hold on to one of these Jade Idols. Again, for the Gadgetzan Auctioneer, do they want to shuffle too many into the deck?
I don't know.
I guess drawing a 1 mana 10/10
You're
is
also making
fine.
a 9/9 and a 10/10.
Yeah.
That your opponent has to clear or they're dead. I'm okay with shuffling. Next turn you have Behemoth.
I just think he could get away with just playing 1. Oh, I'm going to go with Etho.
Crazy. Paladin playing really safe here.
I mean, again, it's not like he loses this game in the long run. The only way the Paladin wins is by some sort of burst of aggression, usually stemmed by Tyrion. That's not happened yet. There's no Sunkeeper Tarim in sight.
This is kind of similar to what we saw from Russia a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
We were asking about why they played, why they didn't particularly try to set up lethals when they could have like 2 turns before they won, 3 turns before they won. And they were just like, well, we'd won the game. There's no reason to, play too aggressively and give your opponent any opening to actually try and get back in the game with an overextension or something like that. So just see Panda just like, yeah, well, there are other cards I want to draw, maybe the other swipe, for example, just to say, well, I'll just kill you regardless. If you do clear the board, I win anyway because I just play Jades. If you don't clear the board, I win anyway. So kind of setting up checkmate.
He's also thinking, hey, we're so ahead this game. We're enjoying ourselves. Looks like we've got the guaranteed win coming.
Now let's relax.
Let's relax. Keep the good attitude going. Keep making South Korea feel awful, and maybe cause them to start tilting.
Maybe.
It's probably not really part of what they're thinking about, but it could be a result of this incredibly slow, grindy win that Hungary is leading towards.
There's a Gadget Zone. So now I believe they can just go off because
yeah.
they'll cycle 1 to 2 Jades, and then the odds of them drawing a Jade, they can play other than Scales. They can just chain Jades forever now to a certain extent. So
yeah, there's definitely not many cards left in the deck, so a high percentage of them are about to be made up of Jade idols.
And what we need to be aware of as well is, although this looks very, very much in Hungary's favor, Tyrion could be a bit of a weird issue in the fact that it's not easy to get through without mulch anymore. Now, as I say Tyrion and Harrison heard me and just appeared in hand, then, less of a problem now. But Tyrion is one of the cards that Druid can sometimes struggle to deal with because they either have to proc it with a face tank or they have to put like a big... Because by that time, they've got big Jades. They have to put one big Jade into it, then another. It can really slow the game down a little bit. But this is looking mighty fine for Hungary here.
Even going to buff up one of the weaker Jade Golems just to balance the pressure on his side of the board. I don't think that there's anything that South Korea can do now, Raven.
No, Stonehill defender into Spite Ridge Steed. Puts up 2 swings worth, but 2 swings is fine. It's absolutely fine for Hungary here. There needs to be... What did it need to be, like a 1-mana taunt? Maybe,
right,
to like put as many targets as possible. Yeah, with the Druid hero power proccing stuff like the Divine Shield again on the Protector. If Grime Street Protector was picked, you could Divine Shield the Stonehill. Still not enough just because the hero power will proc a shield.
It's just a little bit silly how one-sided this game has become. The Druid has 45 health. Paladin has 7. And no board.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's all down to that the free Nourish turn, to be honest.
Yeah?
Because what you got to think about is the Doomsayer that turn with no good follow-up, because there was Kodo as a follow-up or Equip True Silver, gave Hungary a free turn to Nourish and not get punished, and they keep the initiative in a roundabout way. They lose the initiative to the weapon, but everything else, the board's empty. So that actually just gave Hungary the ability to just Nourish for free almost, and then the Nourish card draw into Gadgets and draws is absolutely insane. Too much.
I've got to say, Raven, your team
I knew this was coming.
isn't doing you proud at the moment.
It's fine. Reverse kills are a thing.
Reverse kills are a thing. Not that it matters too much. They'll still, when they lose, they'll still only be 2-2 in the bracket. Okay, that was a little bit harsh. I'm sorry.
I was going to say thanks for the vote of confidence there. When they lose...
I just feel like it's the natural thing to bet against you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Especially as if I do bet against you now, then I'm definitely on the winning side. As Hungary, who are already 2-0 in the bracket, might even take the series 3-0.
They might. It's going to be Paladin versus Rogue again for multiple reasons we've discussed a couple of times now, in terms of the Rogue almost always being Quest, in terms of just the sheer power of that deck. We saw in some of the games today that sometimes Quest Rogue just stomps everyone.
Yep.
Like, you can get those crazy openings. Even in the series you just cast, both players had like multiple pairs of cards.
Oh, it was like they were playing Snap.
It's like, which one do I pick to double up now?
Double Glacier Shard, double Hungry Crab, double Novice Engineer. The Novice Engineer came from a Mimic Pod, so that was a bit different.
Yeah.
But when you actually, as the Quest Rogue, get a two copies of something naturally, that tends to be a pretty strong start. When it happens on both sides, then yeah, the game gets silly.
Yeah, but there is a chance though. Hungary have the Paladin, which means if they bring a deck unlike Korea's Paladin, they could be bringing the more opening, the early opening aggressive Murloc style, and sometimes Rogue just died,
Right.
which is a true problem. So I was saying earlier that when you can actually make all of your early plays on turn 6 to proc the quest and then move on from there and still have a roundabout the same outcome, except you have the opportunity to be more defensive in general than the first 3 or 4 turns. But if the Paladin gets the aggressive Murloc, sometimes it snowballs too hard. But a card that will stop the snowballs is in fact the Hungry Crab himself, along with Shadow Step. It's going to be a massacre, folk.
Finger is definitely an indication that it's one of the more aggressive paladins, but also a very clear indication that it's a Murloc-heavy paladin, which means Hungry Crab's going to pick up some value. Equality, not necessarily a card that I would expect to see in an extremely fast paladin, nor a Stonehill Defender.
Yeah, it's honestly, these paladin lists just change constantly, and there's just odd card inclusions here and there. One of the positives of Equality, even if it's not a hyper control list, is that it's just like a taunt buster, a board sweep, and then you can restart with your Murloc generation. There's still a lot of positive to running some of these clears, and even Kodo could be a nod to other paladins to kill out their opponent's Fingers, anti-aggro tech early on as well.
Oh, Flurry must be so happy about his Hungry Crab right now. It's quite horrifying when that goes right, especially against a Paladin. When a Hungry Crab eats up a Murloc War Leader, or even a Murloc Tidecaller that's been buffed a few times, that's such a big swing. With the Shadow Step, as you said, oh boy.
Yeah, well that's the scary part, isn't it? Murloc, the Crab comes down, you're like, oh, okay, you got me. You've teched your deck for this, great. And then Shadow Stepping out, oh no, this is going to happen again and again and again.
Ah, we actually see a Sunkeeper Tarim from the Stonehill Defender. We've seen Grime Street Protector much more frequently than we've seen the Paladin Legendaries come off that thing recently. So it's nice to see that Tarim and Tyrion are still lurking about in that Discover.
Still involved. Yeah, Sunkeeper Tarim against this deck can sometimes be the one turn you buy to either stabilize or just win the game, depending on how much of an aggressive opening you've had. Because even though the 5/5s, it does reduce them all down and make the trades awkward. Mimic Pod on a board is huge.
Something I don't think we've mentioned yet. Am I right in thinking both of those Novice Engineers were drawn, just one after the other?
Yep, they were.
Wow.
Not bad.
Speaking of pairs being drawn organically, that's not too bad. Gentle Megasaur isn't actually a Murloc, so that's fine for XR. Flurry running 2 crabs, 2 very, very different crabs.
Yeah.
Do you think he runs 2 copies of each?
Probably. I mean, to be honest, would you want to run one-ofs in this deck?
No.
Yeah, so more than likely there will be 2 copies of each. And this is what we see as well with this rogue archetype, is that as long as it's cheap enough, you can almost play anything because the mana cost of the card often does the most work, right? If it's cheap, then you can bounce it. It doesn't really matter what it does. So very open to these cheap costed tech cards in the terms of the crabs or some other stuff as well.
This quest looks pretty much finished to me as Novice Engineer plus Shadow Step plus Novice Engineer. We'll just... That's it. Quest complete next turn. I guess Flurry's going to just play Engineer, Quest, Coin Stone to Spore even next turn.
Yep, there's no real reason to play it this turn.
No.
Because then the 1/1s can die, and then you just lose 2 potential 5/5s for no reason. Because there's 0 mana, it can just be, as you said, Novice, Quest. Whether he wants to coin something out, fine.
They need to be a little bit careful because there's 9 cards in Flurry's hand at the moment. He's going to draw the 10th. So if he just played both Novice Engineers without thinking, he'd actually burn the quest.
Yeah, so he has to coin. These are the tense moments. Yeah.
Okay.
Straight. Look. These guys know what they're doing, bro.
Well, we've seen it already in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Not from Korea.
But that right there shows you like how easy it is to do by accident in the correct hand.
Yeah, well, you have to play the Novice Engineers, right? You have to, because that's what you're going for.
Goodness. South Sea deckhand into patches with the quest complete. The snowball begins.
Yeah, and there was just a thought for a second there. Do I actually just play Crab to kill the War Leader? Just to get it off the board.
Yeah.
But I think with the power of this turn, you can afford to skip on that one.
This gets War Leader off the board too.
That is true, and also saves the Crab, so...
Wow.
It's going to be mighty fine for Korea, and this is going to be a huge, huge ask for Exer.
Yeah, not only does Exer have to deal with this board now and try and stabilize, but Flurry's hand is still huge. There's 2 charges in there, a taunt generator, a bouncer, a freezer. That's my new name for Glacial Freezer.
Put your frozen goods in it.
Yep.
And Glacial Shard has got you covered. But yeah, let's just bear in mind, there's what, 15 damage from hand next turn?
Yeah, and South Korea still have 21 health. So Exar needs to do something pretty significant. It almost feels as though he has to play Pyromancer Equality, but as we can see, that does like nothing. Oh, Stonehill Defender, okay, sure.
Stonehill? Tarim.
Tarim.
Don't call Tarim a Stonehill Defender, he'll take offense.
Came from the Stonehill.
Oh, well, good bad pedal. Yeah, Tarim is the legendary Paladin minion, not a what is it, a turtle with a forest. Turtle in a jungle even.
I think I just read the text that said discovered by Stonehill Defender. Wow. Whoops. Sorry, Tarim.
Even this though means that South Korea can push a hell of a lot of damage.
Yeah, they can even use the Brewmaster to bounce back the South Sea deckhand, or the Patches. Patches would be better because it's less conditional. And, yeah. There's just so many options they've got here. They don't really need the taunt at the moment. They don't need the crab either.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point, what is Flurry afraid of? Either another sweep, but unlikely. Yeah, I mean, with this many resources, Flurry can pretty much just splurge onto the board anything he wants and set up next to it. He could even play a Glacial Shard to face to stop a weapon.
He can set up
just because. He
can set up 2-turn lethal, I think, every turn from now on, just by creating a board that's big enough with the threat of Stone to Spore, and Glacial Lethal Brewmaster in hand.
Yep. Yeah, this is easily enough damage. We'll see what Exer actually ends up doing. It's going to have to be a clear.
And then Flurry just says, I don't care, and then
again
puts more stuff on the board. Crab, Shards, Galacta Crawler, even. Crab seems good.
Crab seems reasonable.
It's going to be what, 7/7 Crab?
Hmm?
It's going to be a 7/7.
Yeah, because it gains the buff on top, right?
Yeah.
1 mana 7/7. We thought Flame Wreath was bad.
Now, how much damage is that? 3 Youthful Brewmasters, 3 Stone Tusk Boars, 4 Stone Tusk Boars even.
Yep.
And he can actually play all of them. He's got the mana to play Boar, Bounce, Boar, Bounce, Boar, Bounce, Boar.
Has he?
I think so.
No, that'd be 9, right?
Oh, he's not even on 10 mana yet. It's so early in the game.
It's got to calm down. We don't want to see Boar just repeat.
I was just counting to 10. It's just crazy that we've got these insane board states and it's not turn 10 yet, you know?
Yeah. Or at least what's good here for South Korea is they don't have to take any damage from Tyrion. It looks like they're going to, though. I guess without the fear of the Ashbringer swing because of this second Glacial Shard, they're okay with just taking the 6 to face. Paladin not really... Oh, what am I talking about? It's lethal.
Yeah, it looks like lethal.
Yeah, I just realized he can't... It's because I was too focused on you saying, like, oh... We
can't do it as many times as I said.
We can play 3 Brewmasters, but we don't actually need 3 Brewmasters. We need 2, because Boar does in fact do damage on the turn it's played anyway by the Holy Light. Flurry manages to take a win with this Rogue, and again we see the power, and this was more of a teched version with what I can only presume is 2/2 crabs in there as well. So a bit of a crazy game, but South Korea, my team,
all right,
put a point back on the board. It's not over yet.
It's not over yet, but they're still coming from behind. They've still got a long way to go. It's just one more game required for Hungary to take the series. So, yeah, it's not sure.
Why are you just pitching against me here, Falk?
Yeah. It feels good being on the winning side, you know?
For once, that's true.
For once. Actually,
take it where you can get
my team are 3-0 in their group.
Yeah, you picked your team when they were 2-0, so it's not quite the same.
But they then got their 3rd wins.
But moving on with the series. Exigo going for his Rogue now, and Kranich going for the Druid. So Exigo, I feel, has probably got... maybe the most experience or tournament experience on the team.
Right.
So I think he might be, you know, kind of taking an overarching just
lead. Well, he's the anchor. He was top 4 in Zagreb Gaming Arena, I think, losing to RDU. So, yeah, he's definitely got a lot of experience amongst a team of players that aren't that well known.
Well, experience is Kranich's middle name.
Tell me about Kranich, Raven.
Who doesn't know about Kranich at this point? He is a multi-time BlizzCon competitor, should I say? not winner, as I nearly just said. It's like Grudge has been world champion for 3
World
years.
champion? Wow, I think Pavel would have something to say
Exactly.
about that.
But now he's been to BlizzCon multiple times, one of the few players to do so, in fact, and as well as multiple great placings in many other tournaments. Was on Team Dignitas for a spell, along with Chaki Green Sheep, Blackout, for example. But yeah, he's just one of the most consistent players in Korea, and has been just playing for so long. Like I said, been at 2 BlizzCons, got so much tournament experience that he's just going to be just another fit in this team. You can't really even point out who's like in charge of Korea, because you look at him, you look at Handsome Guy as well, with an absolutely huge repertoire of achievements.
Definitely a strong team. And, all jokes aside, Hungary are doing a great job at just standing up to them and saying, hey, we're actually good. We're great too. We're 2-0 in the group. We want to get our 3rd win. We want to prove that Hungary, we are players that you should be watching. And they could very well be 3-0 in the group very, very soon. Hungary with the Rogue, we're just going to assume it's Quest Rogue all day now, aren't we? It could be Miracle.
Yeah, the second we do this and just go, yeah, it'll be Quest Rogue, it will be Miracle.
We've seen Miracle Rogues in other recent tournaments being played quite a bit. On the other side, South Korea, if it's the Token Druid, probably got a very, very good shot against any rogue.
Yeah, I think Jade Druid, though, might struggle a little bit, because although we said, yes, you get a few free turns to a certain extent, as the Quest Rogue starts to just build up a board and starts to organize how they're going to complete the quest, like the Druid, gets a bit of ramp off, maybe stacks some Jades early on, but what does it really do to beat the Rogue? Druid doesn't have a good answer. There's Primordial Drake, which can be a pain for the Rogue to deal with.
Right.
There's, even Jade Behemoth, but other than that, they're just like annoyances as opposed to hard stops to a Rogue.
It's funny because Rogue kind of does what Jade Druid used to do. It's not so strong against the aggro decks, but it just beats control. And Jade Druid does the same thing, but does it slower. And by the time Jade Druid get to their win conditions of lots and lots of 9-9 and 10-10s and 11-11s, by that point, the Rogue has already usually got a board full of 5-5s with charge.
Yep.
So it just tends to win a little bit faster.
Yeah, there's a chance that there's turns like we saw in the previous, the series before the previous one, where there's, innovate into Jade generation, into like Feral Rage swipes, go really, really aggressive with the minions and with the damage spells, and just try and end the game very quickly. Because I feel like if this goes long, big Jades or not, it's not going to matter when there's, a 5-5 repeatedly charging into your face.
Of course, the wild card that can take the game back from the Jade Druid in a late position is Yogg-Saron. We've seen it once in a hand already today, me and Sottle. It wasn't needed back then, it was actually in the Mage.
Yeah.
But it's often run in Jade Druid, though we're not going to be seeing Yogg-Saron. Here, it's going to be the Token Druid, meaning that Kranich has a very, very good shot against this Quest Rogue.
Yeah, and to be honest, already he's one innovate away from an extremely strong opening. I believe one of the most powerful openings in the aggro druid is the innovate out Vicious Fledgling, especially against this rogue. We can see the Glacial Shard will stop it for a turn.
Oh, no, it won't.
But I was gonna say, without a bounce effect,
yeah,
then there's, what's it stopping? It doesn't really matter. And we just saw a card, Shell Shifter.
Okay, so there's some interesting Menagerie Druid variants of the Token Druid that have been floating around recently with Shell Shifter, and Menagerie Warden, I think, is one of the big ones. If they can duplicate their big Bitterhide Hydras and have a board full of 8/8s, then that is something Token Druid can do. Just, I guess it's slightly less all-in than the older version.
And it's important to note that it shouldn't be too much of a surprise coming from Korea, because I think every single week at HGG that they've played, they've brought something a little bit different, a little bit of their own. They had Genzo, for example, in one of their earlier decks. They were running... oh my god, what were they running in Hunter? They were running something in their Hunter list that was kind of strange. They were running Knuckles in Hunter as well. So, this is not a surprise. It's not. These guys do like to innovate, like to mess around and see what can work and what can't. So, not a surprise that they're bringing something a little bit different. And look at this curve already. There was no answer, really, from Exego to this board. Vicious Fledgling on curve into, at worst case, if it dies or the board gets dealt with somehow, Shell Shifter is a really great follow-up for some more pressure.
Yeah, Fledgling is one of those cards that can just single-handedly win games, especially when it's being played onto a board of already strong minions. Hungary may decide that they need to play Deckhand and Patches to get rid of one of these minions already, but nope, they're going to take it a little bit slower, accept that they're taking some damage and drop Igneous Elemental. But as your whistle would indicate, that was a pretty good pickup from Kranich.
Yeah, Savage Roar, not necessarily for this turn, but if you drop then the Fledgling, if the Igneous Elemental and the Fledgling, and the weapon go into the Fledgling, fine, that's going to be 3 damage. You're already pushing, what, 7 this turn, plus 7 next turn, 3 from the Fledgling, plus Savage Roar. It's probably just game at that point.
Probably just game.
Yeah, this matchup can be very one-dimensional to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because if you open Wells the Druid, well, there's only so many things the Rogue can do. The Rogue deck isn't built to respond to someone.
Yeah.
The Rogue deck's built to do its quest and then win.
I mean, there are some fringe cases where the Rogue can run Galacca Crawler, and the Druid can play their Blood Cell Cultist, and Galacca Crawler can make a little bit of a tempo swing there, but
yeah,
nope, look at that.
Quick, I believe the quickest game in HGG history so far, and look at Kranich is just like, got him. Easy peasy, and now who's ahead, Falk?
Yeah.
No one is the answer.
Yeah.
It's 2-2.
I
What a game!
I can't argue that. That was a very, very fast game. And I think I mean, turn 4 concedes is the kind of thing that you do see with Token Druid. Quite often on ladder, you don't see a turn 4 concede in a tournament like this unless it's like absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and I was talking about the Vicious Fledgling for turn 3 there, but the actual Mark of the Lotus, what that did was make the minions not easily trade in. They couldn't trade into them very well with that Igneous Elemental, and it still easily set up lethal with the Savage Roar the turn after. So really strong play there. Kranich doing his job. Now it's going to be the ace match. Flurry on the Shaman and Penhadani on the Warrior.
Yeah, so Penhadani had Shaman as his ace deck, which he's opted not to play, and Flurry had the Hunter as his ace deck, which he's opted not to play. So both players have done what we've been saying they've been doing to the Warlock, where they've put one deck in the ace deck and just said, nope, not playing it at all, and gone with the other one.
Yeah, also it always does depend on what your opponent's bringing here, so you know, kind of tough choices. Again, Shaman just never really blows me away, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
The decks, from what I've seen of it, yeah, you know, the lists that we've seen, they're all okay, but nothing more than that. I think, like, mid-tier 2 is a very good place to put that class at the moment.
People seem to agree that it's class number 8, isn't it? Like, it's just above the Warlock. It's playable, it's got some interesting builds which need work, but it's not quite as bad. It's not quite as good, I mean, as the other classes.
I don't think it's just all right in every single way. Like, yeah, you know, the Jades are fine. Unless you go full Jade, then maybe that's a different story. It has more, you know, more narrow ways to win against certain decks, but also some easy ways to win as well. But a lot of the Shaman we've seen are just the Spirit Echoes and the stuff along those lines with the splash of elementals as well. And it just doesn't seem to do anything too amazing. It just does like, oh, I'll just hang on till maybe Bloodlust wins me a game or something along those lines. It's really weird.
All of that being said, Flurry actually opted to bring the Shaman instead of the Hunter. So he obviously decided, maybe it's specifically against these matchups, maybe he's anticipating that Hungary brings the Warrior and they don't want to play Hunter against a Quest Warrior or even a Pirate Warrior.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't even want to go against Pirate Warrior with Hunter.
Unless you're like tech to beat it with Galacca Crawlers. So maybe that's why they went with the Shaman. They just believe that their matchup against the Warrior is better, and as they predicting that their opponents aren't going to pick Shaman, they are going to pick Shaman to beat the other decks.
Yeah, I think if worst case is a mirror match, whereas the good case is you go against Warrior and you're feeling confident, it's a really good deck to pick. And that's why this format's so interesting. We talked about, or at least I did, about how Shaman doesn't really blow me away in any sense at the moment. But if you know, against certain matchups, yeah, sure, it's actually great. So there's no problem with that at all. We are going into it though, and it's going to be the Shaman.
There's that Tar Creeper again.
With the Tar Creeper, yeah.
In every
deck ever.
Yeah.
Pirate Warrior next, I'm calling it. Protect your pirates.
I mean, I'm sure it's been tried.
I'm sure it has.
Worgen Infiltrator, though, would you call this the American Pirate Warrior?
Yeah, purely, you know, like someone I'm sure can tell me if I'm wrong, but the first time I saw this build, at least in you know, HGG season, was, I believe, Fireback bringing it for Team United States.
Versus
So,
Team UK.
yeah, so that was the first time I saw it, and every single time I've seen it since has either been from the United States team or from, you know, people like 2 weeks after they started doing this anyway. So although they may not have come up with it, they've popularized it in this tournament specifically.
Now, talking of doing something a little bit different, that is a Blaze Caller in Flurry's hand. This is going to be full-on Elemental Shaman.
Yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? Because everyone started off with Elemental Shaman right at the beginning of the expansion because it almost built itself.
It was the obvious deck, like with J Druid. It's like there's a bunch of Elemental cards. Kalimos is insane. Let's stick them all in a deck together.
And Blaze Caller, you look at it as a card, pretty good. You know, 7 a mana, 5/5 deal 5. So that's pretty awesome in general. But sorry, it's 6/6, isn't it?
It is a 6/6, yeah.
5/5.
Really
I'm
good
talking
stats.
rubbish. This is proves how long it's been since I've seen Blaze Caller.
Yeah.
But in itself, the Elemental Shaman is just so linear and so just like straightforward that it never seemed to gain any true traction. And the more Jade Spirit Echoes lists have been taking over recently. But let's see what South Korea have got, because I know they do like to, as I said, do stuff a little bit funky, a little bit different. And this Maelstrom can clear up this Worgen. I imagine there's Hot Springs as well in this list. So Hot Springs are going to be huge against Pirate Warrior.
It's a tough choice. He didn't play the Maelstrom last turn. Gonna hold off and not play it this turn as well. I'm wondering how long Penhadani's going to hold on to this Worgen Infiltrator and not attack with it. It came down on turn 1. It remained stealthed in turn 2, so...
Yeah, rolling the Serum Totem was actually pretty huge there for Flurry, because it meant like the Worgen couldn't either kill a Totem or just go face and ignore it. Actually, just a direct counter. Now this is going to get progressively more awkward. The Patches, though, does clear up this 1-1.
Yeah.
That's what Hungary were waiting for. Clean kill there, kill off the Totem. Now the 2-1 still lives. And although the Cultist didn't get a buff onto the weapon, still nice board generation.
Sadly, the Worgen Infiltrator is not a pirate. Now, Fire Plume Harbinger. That's
Korea, man.
That's not a card that we've seen a lot.
That is just not a card.
It's certainly a
Put
card.
it away.
But at the moment, what's it doing? It's reducing the cost of Blaze Caller by 1.
Yeah, I think because of that lack of anything great coming out of that card, we're going to see probably a Jade Lightning onto the Cultist. Just play another minion effectively in the form of the Jade that challenges the Worgen. Kill off the Cultist, stop any secondary pirate synergy, save the Fire Plume for later. You don't need it, and it's cheap enough to use as just guaranteed proc, right? Just play a 2-mana, guarantee a proc on the Elemental next turn.
The problem, I mean, that's all it is now, isn't it? It's a 2-mana Elemental. The problem with its effect is that it's better at the early stages of the game, but you need to have a big hand of Elementals for it to actually be really good, and it's just one.
What it can do is it can accelerate, almost work like a coin, because if you have Kalimos and you're on turn 6, you can play Fire Plume, it procs the Kalimos and reduces it by 1, which means you can 6/7 it. So there's stuff you can do with it later on as well to skip a turn to a certain extent. But other than that, it does seem a little bit slow, especially against a deck as aggressive as Pirate Warrior.
Yeah, that being said, the Pirate Warrior hasn't had a great start. He managed to clear up the board of totems nicely there. Korkon Elite could come down this turn, but South Korea's health total is looking okay for the time being. Flurry's going to want to pick up a healing card soon, but before that, he's going to actually want to get rid of this board.
Yeah, the Korkon just going highly aggressive, and Penhadani and Team Hungary just making their stance known. We're just going to kill you before anything else can happen here. They have to be wary of Hot Springs. They don't know how heavily invested South Korea are in this Elemental list, but you know, usually you're expecting at least Hot Springs, at least Jinyus, and that's probably about it in terms of healing. Maybe a Spirit Echoes again to replay them, but that seems awfully slow. Yeah,
at the moment, Flurry's hand is just looking really, really slow. Exactly that. Yeah, okay, they can play Maelstrom and I guess Lightning Bolt and deal with everything, but then Arcanite Reaper comes down, puts Flurry to 13. There's no taunts in sight, no healing yet. And there's a
taunt.
It's a good taunt too. And the Jade package, again, that's great, but these Jades don't have taunt unless there's a Jade Chieftain later on. it's not really relevant because Hungary are just going to ignore it and go face.
Yeah, this is a big, big deal. That Korkron is looking mighty fine, though, because the huge problem here is that totem. If there was nothing else picked up, say there was another Mortal Strike, for example, then that totem just soaks 5 damage for 2 mana. I would play that every single turn if it was me.
In theory, Penhadani's turn there was great, getting rid of the Cabal Lackey, preventing the Korkron Elite from being traded into. However, we can see a Flame Tongue Totem, we can see a Jade Lightning. There's no way that Korkron is surviving this turn. Flurry just needs to work out which way he wants to do it. The Fire Plume Harboring is still not looking great this turn.
He might go for a Hero Power Flame Tongue. If you Hero Power into Taunt, again, sometimes Taunt Totem wins you this matchup.
Right.
You know, Shaman versus Pirate Warrior, doesn't matter which Shaman you play, sometimes Taunt Totem just wins. So there's a chance you could go for the guaranteed kill on the Korkron. I do like this. If it's Taunt, it's a big deal. It's not, it's the Searing Tome. But still, if Flame Tongue Totem isn't killed, Searing Totem, you know, it kind of works like a Taunt, right? Searing Totem can kill most of the stuff that's actually going to be played pirate-wise.
Especially with the Flame Tongue Totem buff.
Yeah.
Kills even more things with that. Now, double Arcanite Reaper. Flurry is running out of time, but Tark Reaper is going to delay things a little bit. There is still so much damage in Penhadani's hand, though. He can probably afford to just trade the Arcanite Reaper in once and then play the second one and start smacking the face with that again next turn. Like, we're looking at 25 total damage that Penhadani's got right now.
Pretty sure the Fire Plume will come out this turn as well. Reduce the hand size, reduce the cost of just the Blaze Collar down. Fire Plume didn't actually make a difference to the Tark Reapers to the turn.
No.
So there's no, you know, sequencing would say that you would play the Fire Plume first.
Of course.
But it doesn't make a difference to turns. That's why you sequenced it that way. Let's say Raider at least give something for Hungary to do this turn. They can swing into the Tark Reaper, play the Arcanite Reaper, then play the Raider itself. But there's probably a thought going through their mind saying, what if they run Bloodlust?
Yeah.
Are we just dead?
Penhadani is running out of health. If he makes this trade, he goes down to 18, and there's still, you know, going to be 6 damage on the board.
And that's 14 with Bloodlust will be on the board if they don't trade anything else.
Penhadani might actually run out of time to deal the large amount of damage that he has in his hand. And yeah, great, he can play Bloodstar Raider. The Searing Totem just trades into it, and then Healing Totem goes face.
Yeah, something to bear in mind as well is that South Korea have held onto that card in the left, and almost both cards on the left side of their hand for quite a long time. And I believe it would just be dead to exactly Bloodlust plus a second Flame Tongue. Oh no, it would be even, sorry, 6, 9. No, it would just, I think it would just be fine if he had Jade Claws, yeah.
Right.
Now there needs to be the godliest of rolls of this Taunt Totem for South Korea to stay in this game.
Well, losing the 50-50 feels bad, but it's still not quite lethal on Penhadani's side. He could pick up a second Mortal Strike or a Heroic Strike. That would be lethal. And there's nothing that South Korea can do about it.
Yeah, there actually isn't. There's no sort of funky way. There's no Hex your own minion, which I've no doubt would have come out this turn if it was possible. The Hex was available, so there's nothing that Flurry can really do to stop the exact cards needed for lethal this turn. But what he can think about is how he wants to develop this build.
If he plays Aya, it's almost a guaranteed win next turn, isn't it? Oh, not quite. The
Blaze Collar won't be active next turn is something
yeah.
to consider.
And the Jade Golem's not even that big just yet.
Also, as well, there's always the consideration of if you Blaze Call face just for the fun of it, you put them in Mortal Strike activation range.
Problem here for South Korea is that their board is full. They can't play a taunt. They can't play anything that heals them.
They won't need one.
No.
They're either dead this turn or they win, right? With what they have in hand. They can devolve taunts away.
Yeah.
They've got Jade Lightning, they've got Jade Claws.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter about the minions when you go in face for 6.
Jade Lightning tips them over the edge, yeah. If not for the Jade Lightning, then it was then it's close. But it looks like, after all of this, you said reverse kills can happen.
Of course they can. No faith.
It looks like your team is coming through for you, Raven.
Of course, it looks like you were wrong again.
Again?
Yeah.
When was the first time? Actually, don't even.
Many, many times. Well,
I don't want to know.
yeah, this is really tough. Paladin will now sit and think, okay, we can't leave them this turn. We need to do something. There's 5, 7, 8, 9 damage on board if they kill the Flame Tongue. So this could be a Raider, Frothing Berserker, hero power trade into the Flame Tongue. But even that's a big ask, because then you don't have guaranteed lethal next turn.
What if Mortal Strike were to... No, okay. I was going to say, what if Mortal Strike were to go into the Flame Tongue Totem? That was maybe the best shot at surviving.
Yeah, that's well. To be fair, there needs to be a Jade Lightning in hand for this to work. For South Korea, as you said, they can't play any other minions, so that was well thought of. Jade Claws wouldn't have been enough; it would have been one off.
Look how happy Flurry looks.
Yeah, Flurry's super happy, and so is South Korea as they take the win. That was the second. I think that's what Paladin was pointing at. Then he was like, "Well, that's second Jade Lightning."
This is what I like to see: the players giving each other a hug. That was an intense series, as a reverse sweep often is. You know, you feel like you're about to lose the whole thing. They felt like they were about to get their second loss, but alas, instead, South Korea get their third win in the Hearthstone Global Games, almost guaranteeing them a spot in the next phase of the competition.
Yeah, South Korea are 3-1 now, and they beat Greece, Hong Kong, and now Hungary as well. Their loss was to Slovakia, and Slovakia are 1-1. 1-2 now.
Right.
So, you know, they're looking really, really strong indeed to head into the top of their group. And look at that.
You got the color pattern there.
Yeah, I like it. Nice symmetry going on.
Well, I've got to hold my hands up, Raven. Congratulations.
No faith.
Your team got through. I just looked at the first 2 games and I thought, you know, Hungary are just steamrolling through this. But...
Just like you picked your team, you just wait till it looks right for you. Oh, they're 2-0 up. Hungary are definitely going to win. Just like, oh, Italy doing well. I'm going to pick them now. I picked Korea from the start, guys.
I actually picked Italy because of my half Italian blood.
Oh, yeah. I've never heard you mention half Italian blood in the years of knowing you, Falk, so that's very convenient, of course. Looking over these games, though, we do see the struggle that South Korea had early on. The Jade Druid from Hungary pretty much doing whatever they want, right?
Right. Yeah, it was just... This game was won by a landslide. It's one of these matchups where the Paladin is going to struggle. Yeah, if it's a faster Paladin that can win in the first few turns and apply loads of pressure with Gentle Megasaur, then great. But with this sort of...
He was mega sure about the Megasaur.
Mega sure. Yeah. With this sort of grindy matchup, it's just... that sort of grindy matchup, it's just almost impossible for the Paladin to beat the Druid.
All right, then we see the difficulty South Korea had. Exer had as the Paladin in this matchup with the Murlocs. The Murloc tech didn't even come into it that much, to be completely honest. They just got so far ahead early on and just stayed there. And then the Stone just bore filling out the end of the game with the help of a couple of thousand Brewmasters.
It's just the same as the previous matchup, but the other way around. Control Paladins struggle against decks like this, which are their main purpose is to beat control decks, just to win in the long run, just to snowball.
And then the final game, where it did come down to a very, very close fought victory from South Korea here. Just about managed it with Elemental Shaman. But again, what's kind of funny here is, yeah, it was an Elemental list. They just played Shaman cards and won, which is reasonable. So 2 Jade Lightnings, a lot of totems, a Flame Tongue totem, Lightning Bolt. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Feels like Shaman.
It was very, very well played. And as you mentioned, you think Shaman's not the strongest deck right now. Well, it turns out a defensive Shaman against an aggressive Pirate Warrior works out pretty well. We're just going to have one last look at Group D. South Korea now well and truly at the top. Hungary still in second, still with a 2-1 record. They've still got a very good shot at progressing into the next phase.
Yeah, I think what's important for Hungary as well is they've beaten Greece. Which means the team closest to them, they already have, like, you know, they've already played them, already beat them, so then they can focus on playing out their other matches as well and hoping probably that Greece loses.
Yeah, it's really, we've been saying it for a couple weeks now, but we're at the point now where we're actually saying, like, this team's probably through to the next round. This team's probably out of the competition. The groups really are taking shape, and it's just so exciting. We're going to go to a very, very short break, and after that, France versus Malaysia will be the next game. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.